military-industrial complex.
A highly coded yet unofficial government agency. Take the red pill.
If this were a dictatorship, it'd be a heck of a lot easier.
Welcome to P.I.D. Radio. I'm Derek Gilbert.
And my name is Sharon Gilbert, everybody. Sign in, please. I just signed in, scrawled it all over. Oh, no. The wall of paranoia.
Is this... What's my line?
Yeah, I know.
It's...
I loved that show when I was a kid.
It was... I just very vaguely remember.
Oh, you don't remember that show at all. Come on, you kid. You don't.
Kid, I don't know it. Well, welcome. We've got another hour of blather between the... It's been a while since we sat down and had a blather between the two of us.
I know. I don't even know if I can guarantee blather control. I'm sorry. we just may go all over the place.
Well, we'll see what comes out. There's a lot to talk about, certainly, so we'll try to pack it in over 55 minutes.
There is an awful lot to talk about, and we'll get to that in just a few minutes. Before we go any further, though, we want to address something. We've gotten emails upon emails. Why, I'm not so sure that Santa Claus got this much email. In the past,
gift season. We had posted a note to PIDradio.com a couple of weeks ago announcing that tonight was going to be our last program. And just to give you a little backstory, the reason we did is that we just felt spread too thin, to borrow a line from Tolkien, like too much butter over too little butter over too much toast. But it wasn't just the PID radio. We had scaled back from doing a nightly show to one a week. But also Sharon during the day has basically been taking on the full-time task of updating what amounted to a full-blown news site.
I spend about 10 hours a day doing nothing but working on our site.
Yeah.
And I wasn't getting any writing done.
Yeah. And writing was the whole reason that we started this podcast in the first place. Sharon has 3 published novels now, as you know, Winds of Evil, Armageddon Strain, and Signs and Wonders. I have Iron Dragons, and we would like to do more writing. But when you're spending 10 hours a day updating news and formatting it for web reading, it's a little difficult to find the energy left over. So we have put together, and Sharon's taken the lead on this and done all the design work on this, all of the design and the images and so forth, and the layout work for a news site called Connecting the Dots, which is similar to Watcher Magazine in that it presents news items of importance, but it is not to be confused with a substitute for the Drudge Report.
Exactly, and I think that's what Watcher Magazine was becoming for a lot of people.
Yes.
We were getting hits all over the place, and frankly, we were getting trolled, and we had lots of spam that we were getting on comments, and that's why we turned off comments and pings and, I don't know, all kinds of electronic things were happening.
Bleeps and blorts.
I know.
But Connecting the Dots is a site that presents news that we think is important and helps give a context to the things that we read in the headlines on news sites like Drudge and the other online sources that you use for news, whether it's Fox News or ABC or AP Breaking News or whatever you use. So these stories are more like backgrounders or threads that help tie these disparate news stories together rather than a constantly updated news site, because that just really ties up the whole day. So the posting to Connecting the Dots, and the website, the URL for this, by the way, is peeringintodarkness.com/CTD.
And you will have to register, but it's free.
Yeah. And again, that's just to keep the spam bots away.
Exactly.
It won't be updated as often as Watcher Magazine was, but the articles will be more background and analysis type rather than breaking headline news type articles. And that, we hope, will free up more time for Sharon. I mean, during the day, frankly, I've not been doing much posting to Watcher Magazine anyway of late, just because my schedule has changed now at the radio station. But by doing this, there may go 2 or 3 days where Sharon doesn't update Connecting the Dots and won't feel compelled to update Connecting the Dots.
Exactly. Which is frankly very freeing, because with Watcher Magazine every morning, even on the weekends, I would feel the same pressure. I'd get up in the morning and, you watched me. The very first thing I did, I barely said hello.
Yep.
Sit down and start digging in the news.
Right. So by doing that, cutting back the time requirement for updating the news site on the web, and by cutting back and only doing one PID radio program per week, which is the program that is then picked up and rebroadcast on Global Public Radio, Rick Wiles, TrueNews.com, the iChrist Talk Radio, and Remnant Radio. That just one hour program per week. The two of us just blathering. We will continue doing P.I.D. radio.
Exactly.
And made a short story long there, didn't I?
We really did. Well, thanks for listening.
I took 3 minutes to say that. I could have said that in about 5 seconds.
Let's take longer. No, actually, thank you very, very much. We had so many emails, and to just also just put a little additional information. It was more than just feeling spread too thin. To be honest, we have sensed God telling us for a long time now, for about the last 6 months, that we are getting ready to take a turn. You know, that sense where you're on a road and you just, okay, there's a turn coming up. You're going to get on a turnpike, or you're going to go off on a little side road. Something is coming up. We've known it for a while, and we had a really, really strong sense from the Lord that what we were supposed to do was just to end P.I.D. radio. And frankly, I'll be honest with you, because of the pressure that I've been under, and I put it upon myself. Don't ever think that you guys put it on me. No, I put it on myself. The daily, grind of trying to do all this stuff, the sense of relief when I thought, that's one less thing we have to do every week. That was really great. But, we've received so much email. We've sought God again, and He's still telling us, we're going to take a turn somewhere off the road up ahead. But right now, we're both, getting the message. At least do some more. Yeah,
and I'll tell you what, doing this hour-long program on a weekly basis, and when we had the time to do it on a daily basis, this was really a high point of the week for me, to just sit and talk. And
it was me too. I love it doing it on a daily basis. And when you used to get home at 5:30, it was fine. But now that you don't get home until 7:30 or 8 at night, it's a little. It's a little. To be honest, folks, I generally think about going to bed by 9 or 10. So it's it makes for a short night for the two of us to spend any time together. Right.
So anyway, thank you for all your emails and notes. We've gotten them from so many people, and so we to borrow a line from Sean Hannity. Well, I think he borrowed it from Jesus Christ, actually. Let not your heart be troubled.
I was going to say, that does sound like a...
Yeah, and sadly, I think most of the people who listen to our radio station think Sean Hannity made that up.
Gosh.
So anyway...
Well, don't even get me there.
We're not going to go there.
We gave you an assignment.
Yes, and hope you were able to follow up on it. BBC America isn't available everywhere in the United States, and you probably only have access to it if you've got digital cable or a satellite dish. But if you had the opportunity yesterday, Saturday, which was February the 24th, to watch a program, a miniseries called
The State Within.
The State Within, boy, you saw
7 hours of drama that is, I tell you what, it's stellar writing, acting. You can't top it. Yep. I mean, this was the same kind of caliber that you get in any really well-done film. But this was 7 hours, well, with commercials, so probably 5.5 hours actual content. Amazing stuff. And it really takes a look at what is the very essence of what you and I talk about all the time.
The military-industrial complex. It is centered on the political wheeling and dealing in Washington, D.C. around a Central Asian nation called Kyrgyzstan, which is sort of an amalgamation of all of the stands. Yeah, it's not Uzbekistan or Kazakhstan.
Exactly.
It's not Azerbaijan or not Iraq, but it sort of is. Essentially a Central Asian dictator who had fallen out of favor with the military-industrial complex because he was wanting to renege on deals that were made. And
a country that borders on Iraq. They mentioned that at one point.
So the military-industrial complex decides that this guy has to go. And the way that they go about removing him from power is through a false flag terror attack. And then evidence is produced to show that this dictator is developing a nuclear weapons program. And it's all staged, it's all false, but the media is reporting it as given because they have no reason to believe otherwise.
And that's why I say it gets to the very heart of what you and I talk about.
Exactly.
We take what's in the news and we try to find out what's really going on behind it. As I watched this, and I bet you thought the same thing, whenever there was a car crash or someone shot or a body found or any of those things that somehow would leak into the public, AP, Reuters, somebody would pick it up.
Right.
My first thought was, wonder how they're going to spin this one.
Sure.
Because they can't tell what really happened, what, of course, the privy audience gets to see.
Right. And we see some glimpses of this from time to time. Over the last few years, for example, Gary Webb, the investigative reporter for the San Jose Mercury News, who was found dead with 2 bullets in his head. 2 gunshots to the head. It was ruled a suicide by the county coroner in California. Okay. He was the guy who broke the story about the CIA's connection to crack cocaine distribution in Southern California. So, right, there are stories that pop up in the news, somebody who suddenly is depressed and takes his own life.
Well, there's a story that is along that line that I put up on CTD today because it's a follow-up to the Dr. David Kelly, quote-unquote, suicide.
You remember Dr. David Kelly was a weapons inspector from the UK who was very critical of the evidence that was being presented to justify the cause or justify war with Iraq. And, gosh, when was he killed? It was 2003?
2003, July 18th of 2003.
Okay. And the story has come back around now, and it's taking a different turn this time. His death was officially declared a suicide the first time around, but now... Here's
another event, again, taking a look at what we watched in yesterday's miniseries, The State Within, and how the events were spun by the news. Yesterday, Dick Cheney's plane, Air Force 2, was supposedly diverted on its way back from Australia.
Yeah, put down in Singapore.
In Singapore, exactly. Well, he had just made a statement in Australia that regarding Iran, every option is on the table. In other words, he is not ruling out attack. He is not ruling out nuclear weapons. Apparently, some of his generals and admirals went berserk. And according to Saoirse Fall, and again, please take everything she writes with a huge grain of salt, because we honestly don't know, Derek and I don't know, but when I say we, do not know if Saoirse Fall is legitimate. If any of the stuff in her articles is legit, or if just part of it is. We suspect that part of it is. And so you have to really kind of... But her article, and I linked to it at CTD, is intriguing because she takes the tact that he was essentially put under arrest, or they tried to put him under arrest on that plane. There was a military coup attempt. Now, the story that has made it to the official major media, the Times of London, is reporting that some very senior military commanders inside the U.S. have said that they will resign if the White House orders a military strike against Iran. Not an invasion, a military strike. That is how opposed they are to this. In fact, General Peter Pace, who is the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, went on record as saying, we have no plans, we're not going to invade Iran because we can't do it. It's mountainous terrain, it's too big, there are too many people, we can't do it, it's off the table. That's a pretty striking statement from a senior military official. Generally, America's top military leaders, if you're not from this country, there's a long and very deep tradition inside the military of letting the civilians make the big decisions, make those policy decisions. The generals handle the tactical issues. So for a general to come out up front and preempt the military option, and to basically say, as the senior military commander of the United States, we are not going to do it. That is a very striking... It's huge, and just for that story alone to make it into the mainstream media, that is a big deal. In fact, at the BBC, at the Telegraph site where that story was founded at, where you and I found it, there were comments up there. One of them was, how dare you print this? You are just giving fodder and
aid and comfort
to the enemy.
Yeah, and I'm sure that'll be the spin, if this even makes the media in the United States Monday.
Well, that's just it.
And I'd frankly be surprised if it does. The American media.
Pie?
That was pie, yes. Sharon made apple pie tonight. And that's
Who says we're un-American?
the major media in the U.S. has a habit of ignoring stuff from overseas that it doesn't want to touch. Most of the big revelations that made the major media about Bill Clinton during his administration were broken by the English newspapers, the Telegraph and the Times. Barely touched over here in the U.S.
And this is the other reason, another reason, why we assigned you the task of watching The State Within yesterday, because it's produced by BBC. And it was essentially a slam at the United States, saying that we're doing nothing more than setting up these tin god dictators to pull them down whenever it's convenient, and so we can go in and invade and take over. Right,
and we basically cut these deals with these guys, and if they don't play ball with us, and basically according to our terms, then we ramp up justification for war, go in, take them out, and take what we want. Sort of like Saddam. He was our boy back in the 80s, and then he got uppity, and so now he's gone, and we've got our people in place trying to take over the infrastructure.
It's the same kind of stuff that Chavez says we're trying to do to him now.
Sure. And while most Americans would insist that that's ridiculous, that our interest, and most Americans, I think, believe that the United States government truly wants to just spread freedom and democracy around the world. What is not well known by the American public is that the non-government organizations, the NGOs, so-called, out there that are given these benevolent-sounding names, like the National Endowment for Democracy, United States, or AID, USAID, are often just fronts for the CIA to try to enact government
UNICEF,
policy.
That's another one that does.
UNICEF, and then there are also divisions of the Republican and Democratic Party, which go into foreign countries and basically try to influence elections and politics there. I think most Americans, and me included, would be really upset if we found out that foreign governments were actively meddling in our politics and trying to influence policy inside our country.
Well, I would say that they are.
They are. And
what
the fact is that most people
they don't.
Oh, right. It's just that it's not reported. I think if it were widely known, I think people would be pretty cheesed. But when the story did make the press about the Chinese trying to buy off the Democratic Party during the Clinton years, most Americans yawned and went back to watching Survivor.
Well, here's a big mistake that I think too many Americans are making right now. You and I talk via email and on the phone with many of our listeners, and one statement that I hear a lot is, "I'm so mad because Americans are asleep." And if you said that to me, you're not the only one. I've heard that from many, many, many people. And you know what? I've said it myself many times. But my answer to that is many people throughout the world are asleep.
Right.
You and I and many of our listeners can see that the United States is mucking about in other nations, in the stand nations and all that. But the stand nations, we assume, don't necessarily see it. Well, the fact is I think some of them do. Some of them don't. My complaint is that there are many Americans who don't see what's going on here. We are losing infrastructure left and right.
Yeah.
I don't think that all Americans are asleep, but I do agree with those people who've written to us and called me and said Americans are asleep, that there are some who are. Many of us aren't dead asleep, but we have been sort of napping off and on.
Yes.
And the problem is there's an old Roman saying about bread and circuses. If you keep people entertained, you can do whatever you want to, and they're not going to complain. Keep them watching Anna Nicole Smith and Britney Spears and the Oscars, and give them a little tease with a story now and then, and every once in a while give them something a little crunchy so that they feel that they actually are using their brain cells. That's all you need.
Yep. So while we've been feasting on news of Anna Nicole Smith's body and Britney
that's
Spears,
creepy.
I know,
Ugh.
and Britney Spears' haircut over the last couple of weeks, of course, if you've been following the news, that we've got 2 aircraft carriers now in the Persian Gulf, despite the fact that our chairman of the Joint Chiefs says there's zero chance, those are his words, zero chance of war with Iran.
That's not what the head of CENTCOM over there says.
Oh, that's not what the head of...
Admiral Patrick M. Walsh, who's the head of the U.S. Naval Forces CENTCOM, says that he's afraid that there will be, because of all the ships that are over there right now, that one miscalculation will lead to a war with Iran, as if he is setting it up.
That's very true. The Persian Gulf is nothing more than a big lake, and the Iranians possess a weapon, an anti-ship missile, purchased from the Russians called the Sunburn missile. It's designated, I think, SS-N-22, and it has a range of 75 to 100 miles. But the reason this missile is so important is that it covers about half the width of the Persian Gulf at its widest point. It also flies about less than 10 feet above the waves at Mach 2.2. Basically, the U.S. Navy has no defense against the Sunburn missile.
It gets there so fast you can't calculate any kind of response.
Even the Aegis radar-equipped cruisers can't lock on it and calculate a firing solution quickly enough for the phalanx, the Gatling guns that shoot out the depleted uranium shells to lock on it and knock it down. So we basically have, and consider that the Strait of Hormuz is only 34 miles wide. The shipping lanes are only 6 miles wide in the center. So anything that flows, or that sails into or out of the Persian Gulf has to pass within range of these Sunburn missiles. So Iran could basically knock out anything or effectively bottle up the Strait of Hormuz, which they have promised to do if hostilities break out with either the U.S. or Israel.
I would go so far as to say that what is in place now is a virtual blockade of the Strait of Hormuz. And if you look at the stories that I've linked to at CTD today, that you'll see that if you read between the lines, that's what's going on. We're being told that our ships are there to make sure that only oil goes through, that nothing terrorist-related goes through. In other words, we're creating the sieve. We're straining what goes through the straits. That is nearly a blockade.
Yep. And anything that sails into and out of Iraq or most of Kuwait, by the way, is within range of these Iranian missiles.
And I'm glad you brought up those missiles, because I told you this last week. I have a theory about those missiles.
Yeah.
I do. Well, they've been around for 20 years or so. And yet suddenly they're in the news as if, where'd these come from? We can't fight against these. Why, whatever will we do? Well, I think if there is some sort of if I were writing this novel and I had ships from the United States essentially blockading the Straits of Hormuz, and if I wanted to make it look like an enemy had hit one of the ships, then I could do a false flag, or I could just blow it up myself. Yeah,
the missile came in so quick nobody saw it.
Exactly. Well, you've seen those sunburn stories. Well, that's what it was. We're pretty sure, and we know exactly where it came from.
Yeah, because only the Iranians would have done that.
Now, I just pray that is not true at all. But you know what? If I can think of it, somebody else can too.
Absolutely. So we'll keep an eye on that situation. What, again, is interesting, though, is that you've got the chairman of the Joint Chiefs, Peter Pace, saying zero chance of war, which analysts say is just a really remarkable statement for a top military official in the U.S. to make, because he's effectively preempting policy on the civilian side of government. While you've got military guys, the chairman of the commander officer of CENTCOM saying, we're going to take it to them if they if something happens. It's let me make a fluid situation. It is.
Let me make one more observation before we leave this topic, and assuming we were going to, I don't know where you're going next. About a month or so, maybe even 2 months. It may have been several more months, but the period prior to September of 2001, what was all over the news every day, hours and hours a day. Gary Condit, Chandra Levy, Gary Condit, Chandra Levy, over and over and over and over again. That's all we got.
Yep.
Steady diet until 9/11. Boom.
Yeah.
Gary Condit's gone. What are we getting now?
Anna Nicole
Smith all day long, all day long.
Yeah, the weeping judge. So it's distracting us, and this just reminds us of something that we have said more than once. When there is a story such as this that dominates the news, but has very little real news value, look somewhere else to find out what's going on. Because if that's what's dominating Fox News, MSNBC, and CNN, there's something else going on that you need to pay attention to.
Yeah, someone is trying to distract you.
Right. And this may be part of what is going on that need to be attended to, and that is a report from Haaretz, which is a liberal newspaper out of Israel, which reported this past week, Thursday, that the Syrian military is moving up its forces, taking up positions much closer to the front lines on the Golan Heights.
That's really interesting, and let me tell you why I think that's interesting, because there was a big meeting that took place last month in Spain, I think. But anyway, it's essentially European countries getting together. Spain et al. No U.S. presence. We're not in there.
Yep.
It's essentially old Europe and the Arabs getting together. It's the Madrid Plus 15 conference that met last month. I've got some stories. We'll put a link. They are planning on getting together again very soon and having an official is their word, Middle East Peace Conference, with the intention of giving the Golan back to Syria.
That's very interesting. And the Syrians, of course, are denying that their military has made any moves whatsoever. But again, Haaretz, which is typically more dovish than the Jerusalem Post, which is more of a hawkish. Well, it's a Rupert Murdoch paper.
Oh yeah.
That Haaretz would report this is very interesting, because the maneuvers that were reported are similar to those taken by the Syrian military before the 1973 Yom Kippur War. So we'll see what happens there. There is an intelligence summit that is taking place in St. Petersburg, Florida, this coming week, March 3rd, 4th, and 5th.
They didn't invite us.
No.
I don't know why.
Well, not for free anyway. We're welcome to pay the fee, pays the money and takes our chances.
Seriously, if we had a way to get down there, I'd go. But it's kind of late date to make plans. I wish we'd known about this center.
Former federal prosecutor John Loftus, who has written a book I really want to read called The Secret War Against the Jews, talking about how the intelligence communities within the U.S. and the U.K. are really pro-Arab and anti-Israeli. So it's despite what public pronouncements are made and other policies that are made by the governments of the two nations. That's not a surprise when you consider the heavy influence on America's intelligence community after World War II from the imported Nazis and the Gehlen Organization and all that, Operation Paperclip. Anyway, Loftus is coordinating the Intelligence Summit March 4th, 5th, 6th, and 7th in St. Petersburg. And he brings up some big stories that the major media has not paid attention to. Number one, Osama's connection to car bombs. Apparently, American luxury cars are being stolen and shipped out of the United States to finance terrorism. Older ones are converted into car bombs and sent into Iraq. The newer ones are
luxury cars?
Old luxury cars. The newer ones that are stolen are just sold off and used to finance operations.
Why old luxury cars?
I don't know.
I wonder if old luxury cars are more likely to get into, say, the green zone.
Possibly, yes. But anyway, a private investigation, according to the report we have, has led to several dozen arrests around the world as part of this ring. But it's not being reported by the major media inside the U.S. Second story, and this is really significant because there's some prophetic implications here, I think. Newly discovered intelligence documents confirm that Saddam did indeed possess an extremely active nuclear weapons program in late 2002 and 2003. In fact, these documents show that Saddam constructed 4 expensive underwater nuclear storage and weapons development facilities under the Euphrates River during the last 6 months of 2002. Let me repeat that. 4 underwater nuclear storage and production facilities under the Euphrates River.
If you're a Bible scholar, this should be giving you chills.
Revelation 9... verses, I think 12 through 15, somewhere in there, about the 4 angels chained in the great river Euphrates. 9:13
through 15. And the 6th angel sounded, and I heard a voice from the 4 horns of the golden altar which is before God, saying to the 6th angel which had the trumpet, Loose the 4 angels which are bound in the great river Euphrates. And the 4 angels were loosed, which were prepared for an hour and a day and a month and a year, for to slay the 3rd part of men.
Well, according to Loftus, the documents that they found indicate that Iraqi informants led agents to all 4 locations. However, and in fact the agents who inspected these locations on behalf of the U.S. government were exposed to radiation leaks. Well, it says ISG agents. Now, ISG, I'd have to look up the acronym. It's not Iraq Study Group, I'm sure. It's something else. But anyway, the agents who inspected these facilities were apparently exposed to radiation leaks, which was noted on their medical files. However, this discovery was never reported back to Washington, D.C.
Iraq Survey Group,
okay. CIA investigators now believe that this intelligence discovery was simply lost when a computer database was erased during the rush to evacuate American troops from Saudi Arabia prior to the war.
Doesn't that sound peculiar?
It sounds very peculiar. And here's what's even more peculiar. The third story that will come out of this intelligence summit next week, that you would think that the United States government would be happy to know that it was right about these weapons of mass destruction all along, that the war was justified even on the basis of WMD. Now, as far as I'm concerned, Saddam's noncompliance with UN resolutions was justification enough to remove him from power, but in spite of the fact that these documents have been uncovered about the nuclear program in Iraq, apparently, in spite of that, John Negroponte, the former director of national intelligence, convinced President Bush to go before the public and apologize rather than to come forward and say, hey, we made a mistake with this, this intelligence which has just come to light. Why did Negroponte do that? Apparently, the error was possibly Negroponte's, and admitting it would have meant having to fall on his own sword and take the blame for losing this critical piece of intelligence.
It was an error.
And, of course, that
David Duncan
assumes...
contends that Bush is being set up to take a fall.
And you're right. You're absolutely right. That assumes that this was an error. It sounds to me, I still find it implausible that a discovery of this magnitude would have somehow escaped anyone's attention for 4 years.
Mm-hmm. Well, regarding the verse in Revelation, we are not saying we know for a fact that those 4 reactors relate directly to the 4 angels bound in the Euphrates River. However, it certainly is intriguing, and it's very clear from that verse that God has reserved those angels, whether they be, reactors or literal, supernatural beings, whatever that is, they are reserved for a particular moment in time. So only when God is ready to loose those angels will it happen. So if there is a direct relationship, that alone could account for this odd and very peculiar behavior of data records.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, if this had not come from John Loftus, who I consider credible, I would have done a lot more digging into this. Or dismissed it because it doesn't sound plausible. It almost sounds like a Source of Fall type story.
I know,
but Loftus is a credible is credible. He's got the bona fides or whatever you want to call him. He's got a track record. Yeah, the chops.
I just want to say, while we're talking about things like this, while we're talking about prophecy and just this scripture and the way it relates to news. We have talked with a lot of people who are doing the same kind of things we are. I won't name names because I don't want to put words, specific words, my words, as I'm paraphrasing in the mouth of somebody else. But we have heard from a number of fellow Christians who are in ministries similar to ours that a lot of people are feeling this sense of urgency, like there's something about to break. And Derek and I feel it with regard to our ministry, but that in itself may be coupled with this other feeling that we've had. There are days that we literally feel like someone's on our shoulders. Yeah. We have such a feeling of being pressed down, as if there is something heavy in the air. And the way it is just before it rains, there's a heaviness, and that's how we feel. And as we're in a time period right now that's so similar to right before the first invasion of Iraq, right before the second invasion of Iraq, yesterday, the White House had a drill. They had this terror drill yesterday that was based on news. The setup for the drill was that there were IEDs that were set up and going off, almost like 24 or something.
I was just going to say, did they have guys raising their hands saying, I want to be Jack Bauer? No, you got to be Jack Bauer last time.
They did. I'm sure they did. But they're preparing for something, and I agree. I think they should be preparing, just like, schools should prepare, and you and I should prepare. But there is something there's this sense that there is something in the air. Don't you feel the same way?
I really do, and there's hardly a week that goes by that something doesn't pop into the news that just adds to that sense that things are speeding towards a conclusion. Art Bell called it the quickening. I don't know if that's an appropriate term, but it certainly describes the feeling that things are... That more pieces of the puzzle are being locked into place as we get closer to whatever that ultimate end is. New Agers, some would call it singularity. Well, here's another piece of the puzzle to fit in. The Academy Award-winning movie director James Cameron, guy who produced the Titanic.
Go ahead.
If you've not heard this yet, you will hear it tomorrow because it's certainly going to be big news tomorrow. He and another filmmaker, a guy named Jacobovici. I've forgotten his first name now, but they produced the movie last year, the documentary that was shown on the Discovery Channel.
I love that documentary too.
On the historicity of the Exodus, claiming that the expulsion of the Hyksos pharaohs from Egypt was actually the Exodus of the Jews, which, sure, that makes sense. In fact, I taught a Sunday school class some years ago in which I told the kids that this would certainly be consistent with the expulsion of the Hebrews from Egypt. Well, they've made another movie, and it's going to debut next Sunday night, and in which these men claim to have found the tomb of Jesus Christ. Now, not just the tomb, but also the burial container, the bone box, the ossuary of Jesus, Mary, Joseph, and a couple of others, including Judah, the son of
Yeshua. So what he's saying is Jesus did not rise again. In fact, I think he's saying he wasn't necessarily killed on the cross because he had a son.
Yeah, exactly. It certainly doesn't fit the biblical story. Now,
well, if only those Romans had known at the time, they could have saved themselves so much trouble.
Right. So the Lost Tomb of Jesus is going to premiere next Sunday, March 4th at 9 o'clock Eastern Time on the Discovery Channel. There were 10 ossuaries, these bone boxes, discovered inside this tomb. Originally discovered more than 25 years ago, never connected conclusively. Cameron and Jacobovici claim that this is a definitive connection. Let us not forget that Jesus, Maria, Miriam, Matthew, Yahshua, Judah, those were like the most popular names in first century Judea.
Exactly.
It'd be like finding a tomb containing names, Jason and Brittany today.
Today.
Yeah, and thinking
really
that
popular today.
So it doesn't necessarily prove anything, first of all.
That's assuming they're real.
And that's assuming that they're real, that they're genuine. Right. The ossuary of James that was discovered several years ago, I think the prevailing opinion now is that it is a forgery.
Now watch them bring that back out and say, you know what, we discovered that's not a forgery. Actually, it was part of this.
Mm-hmm. So that is the Biblical Archaeology Review, which is the magazine that first brought forth the James ossuary, still defends it. So that's kind of an open question. But there are some very prominent artifacts that have been proven to be fakes. There was the Jehoash inscription, which, if it's a fake, was brilliantly done. There was also a pomegranate that was found, which was thought to be the only surviving artifact from Solomon's Temple, the original Solomon's Temple. That was found to be a fake. The guys connected to this don't know much about the background or the chain of evidence, if you will, from the discovery of this tomb to today. But I just have, that's point number one. Are these ossuaries genuine? And point number two is simply this. If there were 10 ossuaries inside this tomb, clearly there were people who knew where this tomb was. Because the ossuaries didn't just, they had to be carried in there.
Exactly.
And workmen had to carve them and so on and so forth. Now, the Sanhedrin in the first century spent a lot of money and a lot of effort trying to track down and debunk and defuse this cult of Christianity that was growing up in Jerusalem. All they needed to do was produce the body of Jesus, and it would have died right then and there.
Exactly. That's why I say if only the Romans had known, it would have saved themselves so much work and trouble. And you're right, in the Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, they did not want Jesus to have been the Son of God. Right. The news of his resurrection hit hard, and they would have done anything to disprove it. Right. In fact, they floated the story that somebody stole the body, that the disciples stole the body, because the body was gone. So I find it highly implausible that now, 2,000 years later, we've suddenly come upon this tomb that the Jews in the year AD 34 couldn't come up with. It would have saved them 2,000 years of grief and many times brutal oppression. If they had just produced the body back in AD 33... There will be many people who will bite on this. There are many people who are buying on this already. And I put the verse in here that God is going to send a strong delusion in the last days, and people will believe a lie. And this is a lie. This is put out by people who do not want Christianity to be real, because frankly, it terrifies them. Interesting that Jacobovici, the filmmaker, has publicly stated that he believes the Torah is flawless. So it's just the second half of the Bible that he doesn't believe. And there are, again... He will believe one day. He will believe one day. That is true. So be prepared for this, because there will be a lot about this in the news, just as there was with the Gospel of Judas last year. So we're going to do some more research onto this. And we're going to try to get some people on, some experts in the original languages and in archaeology, and see what we can... Simcha, that's his name. Simcha Jacobovici. If they're not on P.I.D. radio, they may appear on Derek's Friday show. They may not even be a weekday show. Actually, a weekday show would work out as well. Why not? This is mainstream news. This is mainstream news. This is huge. This is huge. We live in a part of the country here in Missouri. We're actually in like a little bubble of liberalism here, close to the university and several colleges. But outside of Columbia proper, it's Bible Belt, basically. It's that way in any Bible Belt town that has a major university that attracts people from all over the world. The university is liberal. The rest of the surroundings are very conservative. Yeah. So this is something that's going to affect a lot of people, and there will be some people who will
be taken aback by. Believers would be taken aback.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, that's what bothers me so much about this kind of story. And it's the same thing when a believer sees UFOs, anything that doesn't fit into his or her little box view of God.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And that is where I know I preach on it too often, but I am so sick and tired of pulpits not holding up the real Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
Let's hold up a little cutout that makes us all feel safe and warm and fuzzy.
Yeah. Jesus, the life coach.
Jesus, my boyfriend. Yeah, Jesus, the life coach.
Mm-hmm. Reach your full potential. So that's a story that you'll be hearing about a lot this week, and I suspect that this story will be more have more of an impact than the Gospel of Judas last year.
I think you're right.
That kind of came and went pretty quickly as people realized, oh, wait a minute. There's no connection.
Yeah, but it's a great time of year to bring this out because we're heading up into the Easter season.
Bringing it out in time for Lent, right. Yep. Thank you very much. Well, just pray for your friends and neighbors who you may be swayed by something like this. And all we can suggest is just do a little digging into some basic apologetics. There's a great website, the Christian Apologetics Research Ministry, CARM.org, which has a lot of great background information. If you've not yet invested in the books Evidence That Demands a Verdict by Josh McDowell, Book 1 and Book 2, highly recommend you invest in those for your bookshelf, because there is a lot of solid evidence there that will give you the tools you need to answer questions.
That is true. Well, you know what? We've got friends that have other websites that do fantastic work, and one of those is the Northeast Intelligence Network. Mm-hmm. Sean Osborne has been tracking a story out of the Mexico border. And it's a story that's being spun to look like it's inside fighting within a couple of drug cartels.
Yeah, right.
Sean doesn't think so.
On the 11th of February, a tractor-trailer registered in Texas was stopped by the Mexican Army at Matamoros. This was just across the border from Brownsville, Texas. Inside this truck was a large shipment of weapons, ammunition, and a Nissan pickup truck fitted with armor and bulletproof glass. The weapons included M16 assault rifles.
That's not standard equipment.
No, that is not. I don't think you can even get that as an option from the Nissan factory. The weapons included 18 M16 assault rifles, one equipped with a 40mm grenade launcher, several M4 carbines, 17 handguns, over 200 magazines for different weapons, and over 8,000 rounds of ammunition, assault vests, and other military accessories. Where
do they buy this stuff?
Well, it makes you wonder.
Yeah.
Now, interestingly, this was stopped by the Mexican Army on the Mexican side of the border. And I'm glad.
I'm glad, too. But may I just bring in another story that's related?
Please.
Bush wants Mexican trucks to have free reign, free access to all of the roads here that you and I drive.
That's right. Again, it's part of the North American Union, which is coming, regardless.
Yeah, all you need is a little RFID speed pass, and you can go right through. And if you know the right people, you have the right backdoor connections, you, too, can get one for your armor-plated Nissan truck.
Mm-hmm. It is well, in fact, another step, another phase of this ongoing drive to merge the U.S., Canada, and Mexico took place on last Friday, as Condi Rice and her counterparts in Mexico and Canada, along with Michael Chertoff, Department of Homeland Security Secretary, and his counterparts in Mexico and Canada, got together in Ottawa for a meeting of the Security and Prosperity Partnership.
And it's so funny, the differences between the Canadian press and the American press is how it's spun.
Yeah, I wrote an article on this for Connecting the Dots. I
segued right into it for you.
Thank you, sweetheart. You served that right up there.
Yep.
The difference in the way it was approached and presented by the press in Canada and the United States is really striking. The Canadians had some interesting headlines which posed some questions that need to be asked. Namely, why are these meetings taking place in secret? I mean, the headlines for the article pointed out that that's criticism being leveled at the SPP because these meetings are taking place without oversight of Canada's Parliament, the American Congress, or the Mexican Congress. Mm-hmm. And so these articles had titles like top North American officials play down criticism that talks are too secretive. The American press, the United States press, had headlines like North American political leaders meet in Ottawa. I mean, nothing at all about the controversy. There were some protesters that showed up. A couple of women were escorted out. They were complaining about the treatment of Meyer Arar, who was a Canadian gentleman of, I think, Syrian descent, businessman who was on a terror watch list, and so he was picked up in the U.S., passing through the U.S. He was sent to Syria, where he was tortured for several weeks before he was, released, and it was discovered it was the wrong guy. Canada has taken him off their watch list, and in fact has paid a big sum of money in reparations as a way of saying, oops, we're sorry. He's still on the terror watch list in the United States. So these women showed up to protest. They were kicked out. The purpose of this meeting was for Rice and her counterparts to hear 50 recommendations from the business arm of the SPP called the North American Competitiveness Council. These are high-powered corporate executives from the U.S., Canada, and Mexico who basically, their primary goal is removing barriers to the flow of trade in goods and labor across national borders.
Well, the same group of people, these same business people, had a meeting in Mexico last year, in the summer of last year, July, I think. And that's what their agenda was at the end. They said, okay, everybody go back to your countries, kick butt. Tell your legislators and your government people that they've got to get on board because, we Walmart people and I mean, there were huge corporations that were down there meeting. And that was, they wanted to have this big zone that you could just go wherever you pleased.
Yeah.
And I'm sure that they want to get, take care of the tax situation and banking restrictions, so many things that would ease the way for the big business guys.
Right. Well, moving Mexican trucks onto American roads without having them stop at the border for, safety checks and inspections and so forth is one way of lowering the cost of doing business for these major corporate interests in the country. Their main interest is finding a way to get cheap Asian goods into the heart of America without having to bring it in at Halifax and then truck it in, or at Los Angeles and then truck it in, because you've got to go over mountains and rivers, and that's expensive. If you can bring it up at the port of Lázaro Cárdenas in Mexico, and then up on the Kansas City Southern Railway, which now bills itself as the NAFTA Railroad, you can run it right up into Kansas City, offload these trains at what's called the Kansas City Smart Port, and then it's already in the heart of the U.S. And then from there it can branch out to, Denver and St. Louis and Memphis and all other points.
Who was the gentleman that you interviewed on your afternoon show here in town who was talking about the Kansas City Smart Port?
I talked with a spokesman for the state of Missouri's Department of Economic Development. Our governor, Governor Matt Blunt, was just in Mexico 2 weekends ago pitching for the Kansas City Smart Port to the Mexican government. And so I talked to a spokesman for the Department of Economic Development, and they're all in favor of this. They think this is a great thing. It'll create all kinds of jobs in the Kansas City area. What it won't do is help the American worker who, especially, dock workers and, transportation workers. There are an awful lot of trucking firms that earn money by hauling stuff from the ports of Los Angeles and Long Beach across the country. So, and there are a lot of American transportation firms investing in Mexican trucking companies and railroads. So Missouri is apparently on board this. I posed some questions, and I've got to give credit to the listeners of our radio station who are starting to catch on. Had a couple of calls, unsolicited by me, but a couple of calls for this spokesman who said, now what about this NAFTA superhighway? How does this tie to... Oh, well, I don't think that's really good. That's...
And he started choking us pretty soon. He started sweating and...
Yeah, yoink. Well, that's the way the American press, for the most part, deals with this issue of the oncoming North American Union. The lone example, practically, is Lou Dobbs or Jerome Corsi in the print media. But when it does get reported in the North American press or addressed at all, it's to label critics of the SPP as conspiracy theorists, or as Michael Medved said, drunks, cranks, and jugheads. So.
Oh, my gosh. Well, I have to do a little bit of a left turn, but it's definitely connected.
Okay.
An interview that you did last Friday on your show with Dan Marvin and Indira Singh. You need to download that podcast. It is available, I assume. Am I right in that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's at the
Indira Singh was the very person we were listening to the day we put together The Wall of Paranoia. All those connections, they came from Indira Singh. Yeah, we listened to an interview that Indira had done with Michael Corbin, whose show we highly recommend. He does a midday show out of Denver. Actually, he does it late night. It's rebroadcast in middays now. But his website is the numeral 4 A Closer Look, 4acloserlook.com, and you'll find archived shows there. But Indira is she was an enterprise risk analyst working for J.P. Morgan Chase. Basically, her job was to find out how business dealings that J.P. Morgan Chase involved itself in would affect the
long-term health of the business. In other words, what's the risk if we enter into a business agreement with company X? I won't go into detail because we don't have time, but it is mind-boggling, and we will definitely talk with her at some point. But she made connections there, and then it started alerting the FBI and the media into connections between a company called P.I.D, a software company, which held millions of dollars worth of contracts with offices inside the U.S. government all the way up to the White House, and yet they were being financed by guys with pretty well-established connections to Al-Qaeda. Mm-hmm. And the investigation was squashed.
I know, and she was one of the early voices to bring out those truths. What I found really interesting is when you contacted her and asked her if she could come on your show, she asked to have Dan Marvin come on with her. Dangerous Dan. She said he's a brave man and he wore a uniform, but even though I don't wear a uniform, it's all the same if you stand up and speak the truth. Mm-hmm. So I was honored, really honored, to have those people on the program. And I haven't gotten any feedback yet from people at the station. I'll be back in tomorrow and find out what some of the people around the office thought when they heard it. I know Justin, my producer, his eyes were real big by the end of the show. Well, I did a radio interview on Friday. Yes. With a couple of great people, Chris and Kathy Vanderkay from the studio upstairs, and I think that's going to be available next weekend. But I'll put a link on my website, SharonKGilbert.com. And maybe even a P.I.D. radio, but it's studioupstairs.net. The show is called The Studio Upstairs, but the website is just studioupstairs.net. They have a great show. Great show. They are fun people. They're involved in Christian film work. Cool. They're out in the heart of the beast as far as I'm concerned, because that's where a lot of the propaganda is coming. I wonder, I should have asked them if they were going to go to the Oscars. Can you imagine if we lived out there?
No.
We'd be at home anyway. Wouldn't matter.
Yeah.
Wouldn't matter.
Well, boy, there's just still so much to go out there, and we're running out of time. But
before we go, there is something on our hearts that we need to talk to you about. And it's not something, frankly, that we really like to talk about. When we first put together the Connecting the Dots site, peeringintodarkness.com/CTD, we originally envisioned charging for that. And the reason for that is because it's expensive to do what we do, and we do it lovingly, we do it joyfully, we do it thankfully, and we want to keep it free, and that's why when we took it to God and asked what He thought of it, He said, nope.
Yeah, it just felt wrong.
Want you to charge. I don't want you to charge for that. So
it felt wrong.
It felt wrong to do it, so we have not charged for it. We don't charge for anything except our books, and those of you who have bought those books, thank you very much, because every dime we make off those goes toward helping P.I.D. radio to stay on the air and all of the websites. So what we're asking, and again, we don't feel comfortable asking ever. We just don't like to, but every once in a while, I guess maybe it's okay to bring it up. So I don't know. You say it.
We've got a link at the website for a PayPal donation button.
We'll put it in this copy and paste the link into this show notes.
Into the show notes at PID Radio. Again, you can tell we're having difficulty putting this into words because it's not.
I
something
feel like Tammy
really
Faye Baker or something. Anytime I ask, please, if you haven't,
And it's the expense is not just for bandwidth or for resources. It's in the time that spent. That could be spent doing other things, frankly.
Right. In fact, I could be out with a full-time job, but instead I consider this my job.
Yeah.
And my salary is, I've got a bank in heaven. I can't wait to get there and take a look at that stuff. But sadly, we get bills here. So.
And we have been, there have been a group of people, a number of people who have been very, very generous in donating in the past, and we are deeply humbled and thankful that you found it worth the money that you sent.
Exactly.
And we feel an obligation. And to be honest with you, that's part of the reason I feel like we need to continue with this, because there are people who have placed their faith in what we're doing. And it's not us, it's what the Holy Spirit is leading through us.
We have gotten emails from people who have said literally, my life has changed because I've come to know the Lord through your radio broadcasts. And I got to tell you, that just tears at my heart. And yet I just praise God for it. Derek and I don't want to take credit for any of this.
No.
If anything good comes out of this, it's through God and through those of you who have been willing to, spread the news that we're on the internet airwaves, so to speak, and also, as Derek said, to share of the abundance that God has given you. For those of you who have helped us out in the past, may God bless you and thank you so much. If you have never given to P.I.D. Radio, and if God lays it on your heart and you have the funds to do it, then that's between you and God, and I got to be honest, it would mean a lot to us. However, don't do it if you can't afford it.
Right. We are not of a belief that sending a donation is planting a seed, and we certainly are. We're not in that name it and claim it group.
No, we are not.
Well, we're going to promise that if you send a seed, you'll get it back tenfold. That's not how God works.
No, He doesn't work that way.
But if you've got the means and you're getting something from what we do and can spare a couple of bucks, we would sure appreciate it. And I think we'll leave it at that. We certainly don't want to belabor this and
I don't
beat you over the head,
That's an uncomfortable. All right.
Thank you.
The commercial's over.
I appreciate that. Well, again, you can always reach us by email. It's radio@peeringintodarkness.com.
Or, of course, you can send us individual notes, and many of you do, and I love that because sometimes I get notes you don't.
That's right.
It's Sharon@peeringintodarkness.com or
Derek@peeringintodarkness.com. And do visit the new site, peeringintodarkness.com/CTD.
And that CTD stands for Connecting the Dots. So peeringintodarkness.com/CTD. You will need to register the first time. We don't ask any personal information, as I remember. It's just a pretty simple process, and it's simply to make the site a little less trollable, spammable.
Avoid the spam bots. So next week, we'll be back with another blather. Until then, I'm Derek Gilbert.
I'm Sharon Gilbert. God bless everybody. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Adamson thought she was going back to her quiet hometown of Eden, Indiana, to settle the affairs of her late Aunt Celeste. Instead, she discovers that Eden has literally gone to hell. 2 high school students have disappeared, leaving behind only a running car and a bloody shoe. Strange lights have appeared over the town, and the fields of a local farm are marked with blackened circles. Eden County Hospital reports record births, incredibly large babies joining the ranks of a growing number of giants. Many of Eden's leading citizens have been hiding evil secrets, but their behavior has been closely watched by the mysterious Dr. Apollo Bell, head of the Mount Hermon Institute. All of Eden is a war camp, and citizens must choose sides in an eternal battle. Catherine is reunited with her old flame Joshua Carpenter, the publisher of the Eden Chronicle. They quickly learn their strongest ally may be John Thundercloud, a legless old Winnebago Indian who spends his days writing line after line in a library full of tattered diaries. It's Winds of Evil by Sharon K. Gilbert, Book 1 of the Laodicea Chronicles. Available now online and at bookstores everywhere.
They're coming from the darkness. Over 6,000 years ago, the citizens of Mesopotamia encountered them.
Down through time, tens of thousands of people on every continent of the world have etched their likeness on the walls of caves, chiseled statues of them from solid stone, and prayed prayers to their highest gods to be delivered from them.
But prophecy says they will return, and at a time when Babylon, modern Iraq, and Iran is invaded and destroyed. This spring, exclusively from RaidersNewsUpdate.com, we'll tell you what you need to know about them. In the book-length ebook, Stargates, Ancient Rituals, and Those Invited Through the Portal.